So talking about Thai specifically, where was Thai in all of the languages that you've learned? Like, at what point did you start learning that?
I think it was like the eighth or ninth language that I learned.
Okay. So you already had some experience going in. You kind of knew what you were doing.
Yeah, yeah. It's so I think that helped me. But like my way of learning Thai was very unorthodox. But yeah, because I had that experience um before, and I'm determined. Like I'm very stubborn, like when it comes to language learning. And I never use English, so I get to Thailand from day one. I use zero English with Thai people. So
How did you learn?
how did I learn? Should I just show you my method? Here's my book. Let me get my book.
This is the book full of secrets?
Well, there's a series, so I'm not doing an advertisement for this company, although they should pay me. It's called Asamil. Oh, here's the camera, Asamil.
Okay.
So, but here I'm learning Russian, but I'm learning it through Dutch. So this is like the biggest challenge. So usually I learn through a second language. Usually I learn through German, sometimes French, as a way to like maintain my weaker languages.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, I love this. So basically, I go through the Asimov method. I'll do probably like halfway. So I finish half the book, and then I'll start to do online, just like speaking classes. So once I get to lesson 50 out of 100, yeah, I'll do speaking classes, and it depends on. With Thai, for example, I got to I guess lesson 60 in that Asamil, and then I got to Thailand, and I just did the first month. I did I think 45 hours of speaking class. Like I would just go to the class and only speaking Thai, zero English, and I would just make up sentences. Like I have kind of my own method of how to start speaking, but I won't go into that now. Yeah, 45 hours. She would record, then she records whatever new words and the new sentences, sends it to me. I study those. The next day I go use those words from the day before. Then you just slowly amass, fluency. So after 30 days of that, but and prior, I think I studied 4 months in that textbook, then 30 days of speaking. I was okay so I guess 5 months, I was okay to use Thai on a daily basis. Obviously, my listening fluency still needed work. My pronunciation needed work, but that's the most important, just being able to have conversations with people.
Yeah, there's kind of like a boot camp, or I don't know what the right terminology is, but there's kind of like a research and development stage of language learning where you just kind of have to hit the books, kind of get the basic grasp of how it works. And then once you're at the point where you can use it and speak it with people, then you're off to the races, right? Then it's just like adding on. The way that I imagine it is like you kind of have a net, and I see grammar as the net. And then once you have that structure in place, then you can start pouring in other things like vocabulary, and you have that foundation that it builds on. So you're saying that Asamil is how you build that foundation, and then you get into the speaking after that.
Yeah, exactly. The Asamil, it's I don't know. I can go on about it for days, but I don't get paid by them, so I shouldn't. But I would say use that, because actually I wanted to ask you, is this gonna? Because I'm very impressed, not because you're Tagalog fluency, but because of how difficult, I would say not difficult, but how different Tagalog grammar is. Like, because I've studied many languages, but Tagalog's grammar is unique, compared to the other ones I studied. And there's no Asamil, like there's very little resources. I saw that that's why you started something, but I had already used this other website, which is pretty good that I used. So like how was that for you to learn a language? Because that's actually why I quit, I think 2 years ago, because I couldn't find any resources. There was no Asamil. Like I tried to learn Visaya too, and it was just like there's nothing to to grasp, and people can't explain to you like the grammar.
It was hard, man. It was really hard because I was Tagalog is the first foreign language that I ever learned, and so
that's tough. Tough.
I didn't have an idea of how to learn a different language at all, and then you group that with the fact that Tagalog doesn't really have a lot of resources, and I mean there is not a lot of resources today. When I started 10 years ago, there was even less, And so it was really, really challenging because I had to teach myself, and I had to find a way to teach myself using a little piece of this, resource and a little bit over here. And you kind of pick and choose what's useful for you. And so I had some books, but I didn't find anything that was too helpful. I found some different websites as well. Tagalog lang was one that I used a lot. It's kind of like a dictionary that has like sentences as well. So like it'll have, the translation of a word, and then it'll give you like maybe 10 different sentences. So early on, I would steal those sentences and make flashcards to help myself study. And then I was just working with a lot of Filipinos. I was going out with a Filipino girlfriend. And so like, I was just speaking it, and I would ask people, sometimes I'd get really frustrated because I would ask a question and I wouldn't really understand the explanation. Like, native speakers are not always the best teachers, right? I mean, even like in English, I couldn't explain, what like an auxiliary verb is or whatever. I wouldn't know. And so I was asking people that weren't teachers of Tagalog to explain grammatical things to me. And it was hard, man. It was really hard. But I was determined. I just decided I'm going to learn it no matter what. And so then I just kept going, and, I made a lot of mistakes, but at the end of the day, I figured it out, I guess.
Because with Bisaya, I was, I think 2.5 years ago, I was there in Cebu, and I tried, and I was like, oh, this shouldn't be too bad. But no one knew how to explain. Like, I finally learned it, like the alignment, the Tagalog alignment. Like, I was like, is this like, what is that called? Like ergative, but it's not even ergative. Have you heard of that grammar?
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, so like where it's the subject becomes the direct object, but it's not technically that.
Yes.
Like the
like the focus, like the focus of the sentence.
Like tingnan mo. Like you would say tingnan mo, which like look at this. But like no one could explain that to me. That the mo is because the focus of is the thing is iyon. So that's just like, and then I could get it because, Spanish is indirect verbs like me gusta, which is indirect, right? But it's not that in Tagalog. So it's like, for me in Bisaya, when I started with Bisaya, I was just like, this is a headache. There's no logic. No one knows.
Yeah, and I don't know any other languages that do that. Maybe there are. But the grammatical feature that you're talking about is how each sentence can have a focal point, or will have a focal point, whether it is the person doing the action or the object that's receiving the action. It can be directly and it can be indirectly. Certain elements of it are reminiscent of grammatical cases, but it's expressed in a very different way. Like in German, you also have, endings that will tell you what the role of that word is in the sentence. And the idea is the same in Tagalog, that this verb type or category will tell you what's important. But it's kind of a mind bend at the beginning.
It's definitely more complicated than German. I feel like German is quite direct, but because with Tagalog you have to change the verb, and then there's the verbs. There's so many types of verbs, conjugations, and then the agent or the object. So I'm finally getting it. I'm finally getting the hang of it. I can understand the grammar, so now I just need the speaking part.
But Thai is also a very different language and a tonal language. Was it difficult for you to learn it at the beginning, even though it was your 9th or 10th language at that point?
So I thought Chinese would help, and I was wrong. I mean, I guess tones. People are like, oh, they're both tonal languages. Like, I feel like tones. Every language we have tones in English. Like we use tones. Tones is not a foreign concept. Like saying it's a tonal language is like saying it uses the same alphabet. Like, can we learn Polish that fast? It's not going to be like, doesn't really facilitate learning of that language. So the thing about Thai is it's not that hard. Like, it's just the alphabet is just so intimidating, I would say, that people, it's actually really cool, but people are just like, oh man, this must be crazy. But speaking, the vowels, short vowels, long vowels, but even Tagalog has, the long vowels, you just add another vowel. But whereas in Thai, it's another letter. So, like, taga saan ka, saan, you have to say twice, right? And so same thing in Thai, it would be, but I guess in Tagalog you would pronounce it, but in Thai it would just be like, so for example, to eat is kin cow. So kin cow is falling long tone. Cow is falling long. But at first I would say kin cow, and I just said falling. So, and they don't understand. So the thing is that the vowel, actually, I would say the vowel length is probably more important than the tones at first. But if you can get past the vowel, like if you focus on the vowel length, you focus on the tones, like I use hand movements, rising, falling, mid, at first, low. Grammatically speaking, it's a breeze. Oh my gosh. Like it's nothing like Tagalog. Like Thai, Chinese, Vietnamese, these languages, it's the listening fluency. It's just going to take time. You really need to hear it a lot. But the problem is people don't put themselves in that uncomfortable situation to grow because they're using English so much. But if you get enough listening input, comprehensible input, you can speak Thai in 6 months easily. Like you could probably do it in 3 to 4 if you're studying 3 hours a day. But if you're doing an hour a day, I would say 6 months and you live in Thailand should be no problem.
So you're saying that it's not as hard as people make it out to be?
Yeah, definitely not as hard. Like, but the problem is people don't know how. A lot of these schools are not teaching. Schools are a business, so they're in Thailand. They don't want you to leave. They want you to study. So they're not doing the most. They're not teaching in the most effective manner, right?